Hi everybody. Continuing with the free consent. In the earlier video, I had stopped at fraud. We had earlier done about misrepresentation. Fraud is nothing but willful misrepresentation. The misrepresentation we did earlier was unintentional. When intentionally somebody misrepresents, it is fraud. According to law, fraud means and includes any of the following activities with the objective to deceive another party or to induce him to enter into a contract. The activities are a suggestion as a fact which is untrue or which is not true, and the party which is giving this suggestion knows that it is true. Active concealment of fact, that is hiding of fact, by one having full knowledge or belief of the fact, a promise made without any intention of performing it, any other act fitted to deceive, and any such act or omission as the law specifically declares it to be fraudulent. So, some of the essential elements of fraud according to the law: false and willful representation or assertion. So, false and willfully the person is giving that assertion. In the misrepresentation, it was unintentional, and the person making the representation believed that whatever representation he was making, he believed that it is true. But in this case, it is false, and the person knew. The perpetrator of representation, who is party to a contract, has or a stranger, but the intention is to deceive. Representation must relate to a fact. There is active concealment of fact, that is hiding of fact, promise made without any intention of performing it. So most of the time, buyers say that the house which we are constructing will be like this, like that, and all. But when you get the house, you find that that was just a promise without any intention of performing it. Representation must have actually deceived the other party. One more example: promise made without any intention of performing it are the promises made by the politicians. Sometimes they do not have any intention of performing it, and the representation must have actually deceived the other party. The other party has entered into a contract and must have been actually deceived. Any other act fitted to deceive, any such act or omission that the law specifically declares is to be void, the party misled must have suffered some loss. Now, the question is, does silence amount to fraud? Silence amounts to fraud when it is the duty of the person to speak and the person keeps quiet. Then the silent amounts to fraud. It means that it is silence is equivalent to speech. Now, when does the person's duty is to speak? There are the contracts of uberrimai fidei, that is the utmost good faith, the contracts made in utmost good faith. Like the first is contracts of insurance. Like if the person is taking medical insurance, there will be columns which ask the questions like the previous health condition, whether the person is smoking or drinking, and this person leaves these columns blank. And when the claim arises, the company may refuse to pay because that time he was supposed to speak. If he already had that disease, the company may refuse to pay, saying that it was a fraud. Contracts of family settlements. In case of joint Hindu family, when the family settlements are being done, each member of the family is supposed to disclose their assets, their bank balances, and everything. And if they are not done, it is fraud. Fiduciary relationship, when there is a relationship of trust, like a father and a son. Contract of share allotment, When there are contracts of share allotment, there is a relationship of trust between the public and the company. And then there are others like in contracts of marriage, sale of immovable property, guarantee, etc. Where silence is equivalent to speech and the person keeps silent, it means that he has spoken at that time. And yeah, the example I have is A is selling a TV set to B for a price, and B says that if you do not deny it, I shall assume that TV is not defective. A keeps mum, and here A's silence is equivalent to speech. Consequences of fraud. When consent to a contract is induced by fraud, the aggrieved party usually has the following remedies, like he can rescind the contract is voidable, so he has the option to avoid the contract. He may, if he thinks fit, insist that the contract be performed, and but he may be put in a position in which he would have been if there would have been no fraud, similar to misrepresentation. Then the last one in this is mistake. Mistakes are of two types, mistake of law and mistake of fact. Now, mistake of law again are of two types, mistake of law of your own country and the mistake of foreign law. Mistake of law of your own country is not an excuse and the contract is valid. Everybody is supposed to be aware of their own law of land. Mistake of for foreign law, when there is a mistake of foreign law, the contract is void. Now, mistake of fact is again of two types, bilateral and unilateral mistake. If both the parties are at mistake, it is bilateral, and it is unilateral when only one party is at mistake. But the mistake of fact must be of such a nature that it is important for that contract. Like if two parties are entering into a contract for the sale of horse, but neither the buyer nor the seller is aware that the horse is dead. So both the parties are at mistake, and horse is because it is for the sale of horse, and the horse is the material important thing for the contract, and the contract is void in that case. Yeah, bilateral and unilateral mistakes we have already covered. The fact about which parties are mistaken must be essential to the agreement, like the example of horse, which I have given. So, with this, we have covered the chapter of free consent. If you have any doubts, any comments, or any suggestions, you can write it down in the chats. And yeah, please watch and subscribe to my channel.